Started here with Guillermo, I kind of wanted to ask a question. I'm curious about typing methods or learning the typing process for all of you. It's spurred on in my mind because Guy had posted in the unofficial group, in the unofficial Facebook group, the stats for the end of the year and all of these people doing so well typing, and just sort of like the top group of people that have been consistently typing and putting in their results and getting sort of this awesome group that are now doing really, really well. I think I'm curious in general of your process that you've done when you've gone through learning it. I'm also very curious from the people that are doing really, really well, what their journey was like and what they actually started doing for themselves that was effective. I'll tell you mine, and then we'll get into Guillermo. Typing in and of itself, the whole entire procedure of typing in and of itself, you have to be able to take into account your own self. Your own self is the biggest, most critical factor. If you don't know your type, if you don't really know your type, if you don't know your type backwards and forwards, and you see it every day as you're coming, as you're going, if you don't really know what you're doing 50,000 times a day, and therefore you can track yourself, how are you going to be able to track others, right? It would be pretty critical, I think, just being able to use your own self as your awareness of others, right? So to me, that's sort of fundamental. You kind of got to know that one. And the second part of the know thyself thing is, if you are in a bad state, you're in a weird state, you're off, like, you're gonna probably, I know that there's been time periods for me where it's been way harder for me to type just because I'm off or I'm feeling insecure, and I don't go back to my like procedure. And that gets me to the next thing here, right? So you have to know thyself. I think that's pretty critical. Know thyself, even know thyself in the moment, even know what time of day that you do best when you type. Like maybe it's 4 p.m. Maybe it's once everybody goes to bed. There are times of days when you can have the peace of being able to type, so you can get into your mind space and really be able to kind of get out of your own self and listen to another person, and have the patience to do that. It takes a lot of patience to let somebody come to you. That's a lot of work to do that. And that in and of itself takes mental practice to slow down your mind and let somebody come in, right? So that's a huge critical part as well. Now here, this brings me to my last and final point, and then we'll get on to Guillermo. I have, to me, what is the most critical thing? Yes, you could start with this part versus that part. I think that that's sort of the beginning stages for sure. To me, what it's mostly about is procedure. I think it is 1000% about procedure. And I think what happens automatically with the brain is that it throws you into a bias, shortcut, I'm in a hurry, anecdote land. Like that's automatic from all of our brains. All of our brains immediately go into hurry, hurry, hurry. What type are they? Oh, they said this one thing. I've seen that before. That's an automatic. I'm going to just copy and paste. The biases take over, and you just are in this frenzy, right? And that's something that you have to take into consideration in the procedure. That needs to be like the basics in the beginning of the procedure of typing. You have to kind of know that your brain is going to do that every single time, and you have to know that about yourself. And you also have to have a relationship with that energy. Like you have to be able to calm down and have a peace about that energy, that your brain is going to want to frenzy because you're biased, you're shortcutting, you're stereotyping, you are anecdoting. That's normal. So getting used to that journey. That's why I talk a lot about like, okay, here's what types I assumed that they were going to be this week. That's why I do that, because as a normal part of my procedure, I had to get to where I could see all that stuff and then also still calm my heart rate back down to get back into, don't be in a hurry. And that's a part of my procedure, is like, I can't be in a hurry. I have to genuinely listen to this person and let them come to me, because it is kind of a panic feeling that I don't know this function yet. Or, okay, let me just go after this function. Let me try this one function. Let me try. Okay, hurry, hurry, hurry. Tell me the information. It doesn't work. So a part of the procedure is you start off accepting the frenzy, and then you calm down and you get to the point of listening to them. I have never been able to choose which function comes to me first. Dave and I did spend a lot of time trying to force that, where we would create a forced, this is the way that the procedure goes, which is why our elimination tool has the observer decider at the top, and then the human needs, and then the letters, and then the animals. We spend a lot of time on trying to force which one is the most prevalent, which one is the most obvious. And honestly, I think it really just is, there's some people that they're, even though their functions should be more obvious this direction, it's like, this is the first one that you're given, you know, and that's that, like, that's what you're given. Maybe you see EJ first, maybe you see their letters first, and it's just based on the person. I've tried to like really force being this function first or that function first, and it really just seems on how the person communicates, the videos that you randomly get, the clip that you randomly see. It just seems like that's kind of the luck of the draw. And I will just kind of take the notes as my procedure. I'll just say, here's what I'm sort of seeing first. And the third part of the procedure is that I stay light. I force myself to stay light. I force myself to not commit to anything until it is the most obvious thing that you're seeing in a savior state consistently over time. It's not just, I'm accidentally seeing it in this one video. I'm seeing a repetitive behavior in a savior state. I'm also seeing the demon function of that, and I'm seeing it consistently over time. And then I can cross-check it. It's lining up with all the other parts that I'm seeing. And then at the end, like when I'm doing this gathering state, I will kind of go back and go, all right, which are the ones that I can totally prove? Which are the parts that I can definitely prove? And which ones am I BSing? Like, which ones am I trying to force to exist, you know? So that would be the journey that my procedure goes through. And then sometimes I sleep on it at the end if I'm still having a hard time getting a couple of parts. Or I will absolutely go look for better videos. That's another thing that I do if I'm having a hard time with certain things. And really, if I get stuck at the very end, I have to learn to ask better questions. I have to then go into my mind. Once you've done enough consuming of them, I have to go into my mind and ask better questions, where I'm really going, okay, I keep trying to force this, but I forgot like what I think is so solid. I'm really just like absolutely leaning on an anecdote. And I need to be able to go back into my mind and resort through the information that I have like solidified and be able to pull some things apart. How do I know for sure that this is a root pattern versus an anecdote? And I will be able to go back through, or I can go back through my notes of when I'm typing somebody and going, I put down this as this is how I know this is what function, but that's an anecdote. So that's where I'm struggling. You have to be able to, at the end, it's sort of like a sleep energy process. You have to be able to go back through the information in your mind or in your notes or both and be able to go, yeah, I think right here I'm forcing something, and that's where I'm having issues. And a lot of times that's where the aha moments come from of going, oh, I was leaning on an anecdote. That's something that everybody can do. I can't force that one. So that's my procedure, and I lean heavily on the procedure. And then once you either get one right or you get one wrong at the end, that's when a lot of learning can happen, because now you can redefine your own definitions, redefine your own actual, you know, elimination tool or whatever it is. That part's pretty critical. You want to be able to hone in and go, oh, I think I didn't have a really good root pattern for when I look for observer decider. I think I had more of a shallow anecdotal pattern. So I'm not doing very good there. I'm not actually genuinely really seeing the root pattern. And I keep trying to use an anecdote or a stereotype when I go to see these two parts. And that's a consistent thing that I'm doing. Let me go update my list. Let me do the sleep energy and clean that up so that next time when I go to use that map, that it helps me better. My own definitions, my own words, my own beliefs or understandings about these parts, they're cleaned up and they're better understood for next time. There you go. So that would be my procedure, or the game of creating a procedure. Again, you're going to need to come up with your own, but I am very curious how you guys have done it. Maybe we can start Facebook discussions on it, but yes, I'm very, very, very interested in the games that you guys have had to play in your own processes that have allowed you to come through this whole journey. So with that being said, you guys ready to do Guillermo?